Hey everyone, sorry about that. I have to zoom in, zoom out, make sure I get enough camera space in there. But I want to welcome you to a new episode, or a new segment, or basically a new edition of the M.O.V, the Media Overview. And I'm here to talk about something that apparently will be a franchise that will be making a huge comeback, obviously, in 2 months, and that is the Muppet Franchise. That's right. Now, as many of you probably know by now, if you went on Google, I didn't even know about this until I looked up what I clicked on it. Recently, this past weekend, we celebrated, or Google and everybody around celebrated Jim Henson's 75th birthday. What would have been his 75th birthday had he still been alive today. Now, I didn't even know that his birthday was this month. But it was really interesting how Google did that interactive Muppet deal. It was very fun, and it's something that if they still have it around, I think they do, you can check it out yourself. But let's talk about the Muppet franchise, shall we? Here's a franchise that started back in the 1950s, late 50s, I believe. Because Jim Henson, of course, was born in 1936. So obviously around the late 50s, early 60s, is when the Muppet franchise began, when Jim really started to bring them around. Now, when you watch the special tribute, the tribute special they did for him back in 1990, and you can find this, believe it or not, via torrents by Googling it. You know, it says Googling and typing in Muppets Celebrate Jim Henson, as well as you can watch it in multiple parts, 5 parts, I believe, on YouTube. They actually do a great job of explaining how Jim came to be in making the Muppets. And it wasn't just Muppets. I mean, he also had an active imagination, very inventive. There was no doubt about it. But it was the Muppets that really solidified him as one of the all-time greats when it came to family entertainment, kids entertainment, adult entertainment, and like I said, overall family entertainment. But you know, Jim Henson really, took, the Muppets, and as I said, as mentioned in that tribute special, in the biography, really made them more lifelike and unlike anything nobody had ever seen before. It's hard to believe that the mascot of Jim Henson's Muppet franchise, Kermit the Frog, that's right, his answer to Mickey Mouse, Bugs Bunny, and Yogi Bear. It's hard to believe that his main mascot, Kermit, started in the 1950s, just around the time he did. And it really surprised me. Because I'll tell you this, when I looked up on the history of the Muppets a couple of times, it still got me by surprise that Kermit Kermit started back then when he did. But the success of the Muppets, of course, as we all know, didn't just last throughout the 50s and 60s. It expanded. And we got more Muppets as time went on. We got Ralph, we got Miss Piggy, we got Gonzo, we got Scooter, the list just goes on and on of the Muppets that we got, and what sprung out of Jim Henson's Muppets. Sesame Street, for example, sprung out of it. But here was the thing that really put the Muppets on the map. In the 1970s, as we all know, the Muppets had their own, I think, primetime variety show called The Muppet Show. And they had a variety of celebrity guest stars. And it was The Muppet Show that ran for I don't know how many seasons that put them on the map, to the point that in 1979, the day I was born, not the day I was born, but the year I was born, 1979 I believe, the Muppets made the big screen debut in the Muppet Movie. Now the Muppet Movie obviously is sort of like a telling of the origin and how they all came to be. Now after that, 2 years later, the Muppets would again star in a feature film called The Great Muppet Caper. This, of course, was sort of a new telling, wasn't a continuation, but was coincided with the telling of the whole situation. It was kind of a continuation of the Muppet Movie, but it was sort of a new story. It was different. It was funny. I mean, it was just everything you could ask for in a Muppet movie. Then, a 2 years later, 1983, I believe, or 84, the Muppets had one more film called The Muppets Take Manhattan. Now, the Muppets wouldn't star in another theatrical film for quite some time. As a matter of fact, the only Muppet that would star in a theatrical film, or at least make a guest star cameo appearance, would be Kermit the Frog 2 years later in Follow That Bird, which was, up until Elmo's Adventures in Grouchland, was the only Sesame Street related movie. That's right. But here's the thing about that, though. The Muppet movies, the Muppets movie, The Muppets Take Manhattan, The Great Muppet Caper, were aimed towards families of all ages, but was targeted towards the families of all ages. But definitely was targeted towards an older audience. And here's what's unique about it. When Follow That Bird came out in 1985, you would think, it being a Sesame Street movie, it would be targeted towards younger kids. But believe it or not, it was actually targeted towards all ages. And it seemed to almost in a way at times target towards an older audience. Probably the reason for that is so that they could attract the older audience to Sesame Street and show them that it's not just for preschools, which essentially it is. But Follow That Bird, like I said, was a movie for all ages, targeted all age groups, but at times seemed to be targeted more towards the older audience. After Follow That Bird, again, like I said, the Muppets either way would not star in another feature film until the 1990s, when they did A Christmas Carol, Treasure Island, and then the last theatrical film, Muppets in Space, or whatever, Muppets from Space, or whatever it's called. Now, throughout those times, the Muppets did star in many specials, though. We will say that. They starred in the Muppet Family Christmas. I believe, if I look through my DVDs here, they starred in the Muppet Family Christmas. They starred at the Muppets at Walt Disney World, which was sort of a promotional tool, as well, according to many people, to show that the Muppets and Jim Henson Productions were now partnered and associated with the Walt Disney Company. After that, of course, the unfortunate tragedy, or the unfortunate death of Jim Henson happened. And then in November of that same year, Jim Henson's family decided to use the Muppets of the Muppet Show, as well as towards the end the Sesame Street Gang, along with celebrities like Carol Burnett, Ray Charles, John Denver, Harold Belafonte, I can't think of his name right now. But they used the celebrities that really put a name for themselves, or some celebrities that guest starred with the Muppets, not only in the Muppet Show, but Sesame Street as well, to acknowledge how they felt, including Steven Spielberg. Steven Spielberg. Now, that was also one of the last specials for a while. And again, after that special, the Muppets would appear again in theaters with Muppet Christmas Carol and Muppets Treasure Island, and then Muppets from Space. Now, it was around the time of after Treasure Island and in between that time and Muppets from Space, I believe, and a little later on, that the Muppets would appear in sort of a new revised version of the Muppet Show on ABC's TGIF. Now, that didn't last too long, but it was a great attempt to try to bring the Muppet Show back and bring the Muppet back into a modern mainstream atmosphere. After that, the Muppets, again associated with Disney, did something called DC Studios on the Disney Channel as well as on ABC Saturday mornings, I believe. Then after that, they starred in a new film. It was actually the first made-for-television film. It's a very Merry Muppet Christmas, which was sort of their adaptation of the classic Christmas tale, It's a Wonderful Life. Then after that, the Muppets again would not appear in another special until a few years later with Letters from Santa, The Muppets themselves would appear in a variety of places like America's Funniest Home Videos, Dancing with the Stars, Good Morning America, Regis and Kelly, which I'm pretty sure they're going to be appearing on again. They're just everywhere. I mean, they even hosted or co-hosted one year the Walt Disney World Very Merry Christmas Parade in Disneyland. So the Muppets have been everywhere. And now, this year, 2011, November 2011, the Thanksgiving holiday season, they will be returning to the theaters for the first time in about 14 years. First time in over a decade. And they will be starring in appropriately named The Muppets movie, in a movie just called The Muppets, which is basically, as many people have looked at it, a rebooting of the entire franchise. No, it's not a retelling of how they met. Basically, sort of a rebooting, reunion-like movie to help them save the theater that they made a name for themselves in. So, it's going to be quite interesting when it comes out. And it's the first theatrical Muppet movie to be rated PG. The last time they had a PG rating was when they did the Very Merry Christmas movie. Now, the Muppets, of course, like I said, will be starring in the movie come November, Thanksgiving holiday. But before then, they're actually going to be doing something that no one has ever expected them to do. A lot of people have been talking about it. Some people think it's going to be fun, think it's going to be interesting to watch. Some are basically like, what the fuck? You know, what the fuck is, this company thinking? But on Halloween night, in about 32 days, I believe, Halloween night in about 32 days, the Muppets will be guest stars and guest hosting WWE, World Wrestling Entertainment's Monday Night Raw program. Now, a lot of people feel that, again, a lot of people are talking about this. Some think it's going to be interesting. Some think it's a little, like, what the fuck is WWE thinking? But it is going to be quite interesting to see exactly what happens. I mean, even I'm kind of wondering what WWE is thinking doing this, but we just got to see what happens. Mostly, we believe that the sketches, the segments with the Muppets are going to be backstage, unless we actually get a surprise. Because when you look at this promotional picture here from the Muppets new movie, it shows them walking. So it makes you think perhaps maybe they're going to finally do something that has them walking. It may require people in costumes, but what are you going to do? But I think a majority of the reaction is going to be the Muppets are going to be doing backstage segments with the WWE superstars and crew. So overall, the Muppets have definitely have the presence known. They have been everywhere. They have proven it, and they're going to be proving it again come October 31st when they host Raw, as well as they'll be proving it again when they return to theaters in November, Thanksgiving. All I can say is it's going to be great watching, and it is kind of ironic that the Muppets the first theatrical film, sort of like I said, a rebooting of the franchise, is sort of a rebooting reunion movie, is being released in the year that Jim Henson himself, the man that created them, would have been 75 years old. So, what a way to celebrate a man's 75th, what would have been his 75th year on this planet, than by releasing the Muppets in a new movie, in a new theatrical movie, and presenting them to a new generation of fans. Now, these movies here are actually all movies that I took from these DVDs I created by stuff I downloaded via torrents, as well as got off Encore On Demand. And what are these? Well, these are what I call the Muppets 75th birthday DVDs. Now, of course, that doesn't mean 75 years of the Muppets. The 75 is for Jim Henson. The Muppets, of course, is just how we knew him. Knew him by, actually. And on here, on the first volume, which is this one right here, we have the Muppets Celebrate Jim Henson, The Great Muppet Caper, The Muppets Take Manhattan, Follow That Bird, and The Muppets at Walt Disney World. Now, on volume 2, which is right here, same cover, but it's a different volume, we have Muppet Family Christmas, Muppets at Walt Disney World. Now, the reason I put Muppets on Walt, again, I'll get into that in a second, but we have Muppets at Walt Disney World, the Muppets Christmas Carol, It's a Very Merry Muppet Christmas, and the Muppets Celebrate Jim Henson. Now, the reason I added Muppets at Walt Disney World and the Muppets Celebrate Jim Henson on both DVDs is, one, with volume 1, I'm beginning with the Muppets Celebrate Jim Henson and ending with the Muppets at Walt Disney World. So I figured let's begin the first volume with the tribute and end the second volume with the tribute. But the reason I put the Muppets at Walt Disney World is due to the fact that when I tried to record it off my Xbox, because I was streaming it from the computer that it's connected to, you know how that works if you have an Xbox 360, it was going slow, it was stopping, it was okay, but it was kind of like, let's say, 85%. I wanted 100%, no stoppage. So I put it on a DVD-ROM, and there you go. So overall, the Muppets have definitely have a legacy that's going to live on forever, no doubt about it. And a new generation is definitely going to be introduced to them come November and on October 1st if you're a WWE fan. So, not October 1st, but October 31st, Halloween, if you're a WWE fan. So, I thank you all for watching this new episode, this new edition of the M.O.V. Media Overview. Comment down below if you like, and I hope you all have a good night.